I never thought a simple Mother's Day lunch would turn into one of the most painful moments of my life. My mom Karen has always had her favorites, and I've never been one of them. But I hoped today would be different. We all gathered at this cozy little restaurant downtown. My two older siblings, Mark and Lisa, seemed to be glowing with pride as Mom talked about their achievements. Mark just bought a new house, Lisa got promoted again, and both of them have these perfect lives that Mom can't stop bragging about. I sat there quietly, sipping my drink, trying not to let the familiar ache grow in my chest. I've struggled more than they know, not because I don't want to succeed but because life kept knocking me down. I didn't have a big job, a fancy car, or a sparkling resume. I was barely holding things together. Then, out of nowhere, Mom turned to me. Her smile faded and her voice dropped to that cold tone I know too well. "I'm proud of all my children," she said, pausing just long enough to make sure I felt the weight of her next words. "Except the one sitting right here who's just a disappointment." The words hit me like a slap. The whole table went silent. I wanted to disappear. I wanted to scream. But instead, I swallowed the lump in my throat and forced a weak smile. I've heard Mom say things like this before, but never so openly, never in front of everyone. It was like she was announcing to the world that I was a failure. And at that moment, I realized that maybe I didn't just disappoint her. Maybe I never really mattered. But here's the thing, as awful as it felt, something inside me shifted. I didn't need her approval anymore. I didn't have to be the shining star in her eyes. I'm still figuring things out. Maybe my path looks messy from the outside, but it's mine. That lunch was a breaking point. I left the restaurant with tears in my eyes but a new kind of determination burning inside. I'm done living in the shadow of my siblings and the cold judgment of my mother. It's time to build my own version of success, one she might never understand but one that I will be proud of. After that lunch, I didn't speak much to Mom for weeks. I avoided calls and messages because I wasn't ready to face her, or hear more of her disappointment. But the silence wasn't just about her. It was about me trying to figure out who I was beneath all the shame and self-doubt she piled on me. I started small. I signed up for a night class at the community college, something I never thought I had the guts to do. At first, I felt like everyone there was smarter, more prepared, more deserving. But slowly I found my footing. I met people who had been through rough patches too, people who didn't fit into anyone's perfect mold. One night after class, I sat alone in a coffee shop, staring at my notes and feeling exhausted but kind of hopeful. That's when my phone buzzed with a message from Lisa. I didn't know what to expect. Maybe another backhanded comment, or some empty excuse for Mom's behavior. But she wrote, "I'm sorry about what Mom said. You don't deserve that. If you ever want to talk or hang out, I'm here." Caught me off guard. For the first time, I felt a flicker of something I hadn't felt in a long time: connection. Maybe Mom wasn't the only one in that family who judged. Maybe there were cracks in the perfect picture. I didn't reply right away. I wasn't ready to forgive or forget, but it was a start. That lunch, the words Mom said, they still sting. But they no longer define me. I'm learning to be proud of the messy, slow, and sometimes painful journey I'm on. And maybe one day they'll see me for who I really am, not the disappointment, but someone who never gave up. Weeks turned into months and my life started shifting in ways I never imagined. The classes led to a part-time job tutoring students struggling in math, something I never thought I'd be good at. But helping those kids reminded me I had value even if Mom didn't see it. One Saturday, Lisa invited me over to her place. I hesitated, but I went. When I arrived, it wasn't the cold, polished sister I expected. She was relaxed, even a little nervous. We sat on her couch, sipping coffee, and for the first time we really talked, about things that didn't involve Mom or comparisons. She told me she always felt pressure too, like she was trying to live up to Mom's impossible expectations. I was surprised to hear it, but it made me realize none of us were perfect. We were all just trying to survive. That day, I began to see my siblings differently. They weren't trophies in Mom's display case. They were people, flawed, fragile, and sometimes scared. And maybe, just maybe, Mom's harsh words came from a place of her own fears and disappointments. I'm still healing, and I know the road ahead won't be easy. But I'm learning that being proud of myself matters more than anyone else's approval. And maybe one day my mom will see that too, or maybe she won't. Either way, I'm done shrinking myself to fit her version of success. I'm here. I'm real. And I'm enough. Not long after that visit with Lisa, I decided to confront Mom, not to argue or beg for her approval but to set some boundaries. I invited her over to my small apartment, nervous but determined. When she arrived, I could see the usual cool distance in her eyes, but I was ready. I told her how her words at the Mother's Day lunch cut me deeper than she probably imagined. I told her how hard I'd been trying, how much I was struggling just to find my way. She listened, though her expression didn't change much. Then she surprised me by saying, "I never wanted to hurt you. I wanted you to be better, to have a life that's easier than mine was." That wasn't the excuse I wanted, but it was something. A crack in her armor. For the first time, I saw her as more than just the harsh voice in my head. I told her I wasn't asking for perfection or for her to pretend everything was okay. I just wanted respect, and maybe a little kindness. It wasn't a perfect moment. There was no big breakthrough, no instant healing. But it was real. And it was a start. Since then, our conversations have been tougher but more honest. I'm still the disappointment in her eyes sometimes, but I'm learning that my worth doesn't depend on her judgment. I'm finally learning to be proud of me. Months later, I found myself at another family gathering. This time, it wasn't a fancy restaurant or a special occasion. It was a simple weekend barbecue at my brother Mark's house. The tension was still there, but it felt different somehow, less heavy. Mom was quieter than usual, maybe even a little softer. When she looked at me, I caught a flicker of something. Maybe regret, maybe hope. I didn't need her to say the words. I just needed her to see me. Lisa came over and gave me a quick smile, the kind that said, "We're in this together." Mark, too, was more relaxed, and for once I didn't feel like the odd one out. That day I realized something important. Families are messy. They're filled with love and pain, pride and disappointment, forgiveness and grudges. But they're still family. I'm still on my journey, figuring out who I am and what success really means to me. And while my mom's words still sting sometimes, they don't control me anymore. I'm proud of myself. And that's enough. Since that barbecue, I've been learning to let go of the need for my mom's approval. It's not easy, old wounds don't heal overnight, but each day I get a little stronger. I've started writing again, something I abandoned years ago because I didn't think I was good enough. Now I write for myself, not for anyone else. It's messy, imperfect, and totally mine. Sometimes I still catch myself wondering if Mom will ever truly be proud of me. But then I remind myself, her pride doesn't define my worth. I define it. I'm more than the disappointment she once said I was. I'm a survivor, a fighter, and someone who refuses to be broken by harsh words or cold looks. Maybe one day she'll see that. Or maybe she won't. Either way, I'm done waiting. I'm proud of who I am, right here, right now, and that's the real victory. Not long ago, I ran into Mom unexpectedly at the grocery store. It was awkward at first. Neither of us knew what to say. But then she reached out and gave me a quick hug. It wasn't much, but it was something. She didn't say she was proud, and I didn't ask. Instead, I just smiled and said, "I'm doing okay." Walking away, I felt lighter than I had in years. It wasn't about her recognition anymore. It was about finally being able to hold my head high, regardless of what she thought. I'm still figuring everything out, but I've learned one thing for sure. Sometimes the hardest battles are the ones we fight within ourselves. And winning them doesn't mean everyone else will cheer for us. It means we've finally become our own biggest supporters. That's where I am now, learning to love myself in a way I never thought possible. And honestly, that's the greatest gift I could ever give myself. Since that chance meeting, things haven't suddenly become perfect between Mom and me, but there's a quiet understanding now. No more harsh words, no more silent judgment. We're both just there, trying in our own way. I still have tough days when old doubts creep in and I wonder if I'm really moving forward. But then I remember how far I've come from that painful lunch, from those words that once crushed me. Now, when I look in the mirror, I see someone who's fighting, growing, and refusing to be defined by anyone else's standards. That's a kind of freedom I never thought I'd have. Maybe one day Mom will say she's proud. Maybe she won't. But I don't need that anymore. Because finally, I am proud of me. Looking back, that Mother's Day lunch still stings, but it no longer controls me. What once felt like a crushing defeat became the spark I needed to find myself. I've learned that sometimes the people we want approval from the most are the hardest to please. And that's okay. Their opinions don't have to define our worth. I'm still a work in progress, still making mistakes, still learning, but I'm doing it on my own terms now. And that makes all the difference. So if you're out there feeling like you're not enough, like you're the disappointment in someone's eyes, know this: you're not alone. Your value isn't measured by their judgment. You're enough, just as you are. And sometimes that's the bravest thing you can be. Since then, I've started building a life that feels authentic. One where I don't hide my struggles or pretend to be someone I'm not. I'm learning to celebrate the small wins, the quiet moments of progress, and the resilience that keeps me going. I've realized that success isn't a trophy or a title. It's waking up each day ready to face whatever comes with courage and grace. And that's something no one can take away from me. Mom and I may never have the perfect relationship, but I'm at peace with that now. Because the most important relationship I have is the one with myself. If there's one thing I want anyone reading this to take away, it's this. No matter what anyone says, you have the power to define your own worth. You are not your mistakes, your struggles, or anyone else's expectations. You're your own story, and it's worth telling. A few weeks ago, I received a letter in the mail from Mom. It was short and awkward, but it was the first time she had reached out in a while without criticism or expectation. She wrote, "I may not always say it the right way, but I want you to know I see you trying. Keep going." It wasn't a perfect apology, but it was something real. Reading those words, I felt a strange mix of relief and sadness. Relief that maybe a door was opening, sadness for all the time lost. But mostly I felt hopeful. Hopeful that even broken relationships can find a way forward, however small the steps. And that sometimes the hardest battles bring the most unexpected gifts. Since receiving that letter, I've started writing back. Not to fix everything or erase the past, but just to keep the conversation going, to let her know I'm here and I'm trying too. It feels strange to reach out after so much distance, but it's also freeing. For the first time, I'm not waiting for her to come around. I'm meeting her halfway. I don't know where this will lead, and honestly, that's okay. What matters is that I'm choosing to move forward on my own terms, with or without her full approval. I'm learning that sometimes love isn't about perfection or grand gestures. It's about the small, messy moments of trying again. And for me, that's enough to keep going. Our messages are still awkward and few, but each one feels like a small victory. We're not suddenly a perfect family, but there's a new thread of understanding weaving between us. Sometimes I wonder if Mom even realizes how much those words at that lunch shaped me, how they pushed me to fight for myself, even when I thought I couldn't. Maybe she never meant to be so harsh, or maybe she did. It doesn't matter as much anymore. What matters is that I'm here, standing tall despite it all. I'm still learning to be proud of myself every single day, and maybe that's the most important kind of pride there is. It's strange how a few words can change the course of your life. That day at the Mother's Day lunch, when Mom said she was proud of everyone except me, it shattered something inside me. At first, I wanted to hide away forever, convinced I was nothing but a failure in her eyes. But over time, that crushing moment became the fuel I didn't know I needed. I started looking at myself differently, not through Mom's harsh judgment but through my own eyes. I realized I'd been carrying around a weight that wasn't mine to bear. Her disappointment, her expectations, they were hers, not mine. Learning to separate myself from her words has been the hardest thing I've ever done. It's like untangling years of pain and self-doubt, layer by layer. Some days are easier than others. Some days I still catch myself thinking I'm not enough or that I'll never measure up. But then I remind myself of how far I've come, from feeling invisible and worthless to standing here writing this story. I've discovered that my worth isn't defined by a job title, a fancy house, or anyone's approval. It's in the small victories, the late nights studying, the friendships I'm building, the moments I choose kindness instead of bitterness. It's in showing up for myself when no one else does. And maybe that's the real lesson Mom never taught me, that pride should come from within, not from someone else's praise. It's taken me a long time to understand that I don't need to be perfect or successful by anyone else's standards to be worthy of love and respect. Our relationship isn't fixed. It might never be perfect, and that's okay. What matters now is that I'm free to write my own story, a story of resilience, growth, and self-love. I'm learning that sometimes the hardest battles lead to the strongest victories. And honestly, I'm proud of that. It's incredible how a single moment can change everything. That Mother's Day lunch, when Mom said she was proud of all her children except me, felt like a blow I wasn't ready for. I left the table feeling smaller than I ever had, like I was invisible, a failure not just in her eyes but somehow in my own. For weeks, I replayed those words in my head, each time feeling the weight of them settle deeper. But as painful as that day was, it forced me to face something I'd been avoiding for years. I had been living my life through my mother's expectations, constantly measuring myself against standards that weren't mine. And no matter how hard I tried, I was never going to fit the mold she wanted me to. That realization was both terrifying and freeing. It was terrifying because it meant I had to find my own path without the safety net of her approval. But it was freeing because it gave me permission to stop pretending and start living authentically. Since that lunch, I've taken small but meaningful steps toward reclaiming my sense of self. I enrolled in night classes, started tutoring, reconnected with old passions, and most importantly, began to forgive myself for not being perfect. Every small victory, whether it was passing a difficult exam or simply getting out of bed on a bad day, became proof that I mattered. My relationship with mom didn't magically heal overnight. Sometimes she still slips back into that cold, critical voice, but I'm learning not to internalize it. I'm no longer defined by her words or her approval. Instead, I'm defined by my resilience, my kindness, and my refusal to give up. The hardest part has been learning to be proud of myself. It's strange how often we wait for others to validate us when all along, the only validation that truly matters comes from within. I'm starting to celebrate who I am, flaws and all, and that has made all the difference. There's still a long road ahead. There are days I doubt myself and moments I wish things were different. But I'm walking that road on my own terms now. I'm learning that pride isn't about perfection or pleasing others. It's about showing up for yourself, even when it's hard. And after all that pain and struggle, I can finally say, I'm proud of me. Looking back on everything, I realized that moment at the Mother's Day lunch was painful but necessary. It broke something open inside me, not to hurt me but to wake me up. To show me that my worth wasn't tied to anyone else's approval, even my mom's. I'm not the disappointment she said I was. I'm someone who's faced hard truths and still chooses to keep going. Someone who's learning to love herself despite the scars. Our relationship is far from perfect and maybe it never will be. But that's okay. I've found peace in accepting that some people won't see us the way we see ourselves, and that doesn't make us any less valuable. Now, I live for the moments where I feel proud of who I am, not because someone else said so, but because I earned it. I'm building a life that feels real and true, even if it looks different from what anyone expected. If you're struggling with feeling like you're not enough, I want you to know this. You are enough. Your story matters. Your journey matters. And above all, your heart matters. Sometimes the hardest lessons bring the greatest strength. And for me, that strength is finally owning my worth, unapologetically and without fear.